Mission completed.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our show today. Welcome to the Manatees of Crystal River, Florida. I'm Kylie Vandy Wingard, your moderator, and today we have an exciting adventure lined up for you all. I said that I was in Florida. You might be looking at me wondering why on earth I'm wearing three jackets and her hair is blowing all over the place. When they told me to Florida, I also thought it was going to be warm, and I was lied to. So you're going to get to see a really exciting adventure today. We're going to dive into the world of ocean giants because today we're going on an epic journey to meet some very cool herbivores. Like I said, we're here in Florida's Crystal River, about an hour north of Tampa, the site of the largest aggregation of manatees in Florida. It's come here to escape the colder waters of winter and to enjoy the warm, shallow freshwater with their calves. What's even more incredible is that we have scientists working hard to learn all about them, and you get to be right here with us live as they take a look at these incredible animals. We'll be joined shortly by our host, Dr. Chris Lowe, and our resident marine mammal expert, Dr. Gwen Goodmanlowe, who come to us both from CSU Long Beach. In the water with me right now looking for together, we'll learn about manatee anatomy, biology, and the role in the ocean ecosystem. We're going to answer your guys' questions at the end, show you some cool behind the scenes action, and we're going to get up close and personal, hopefully with some giants. Just a reminder, as usual with these streams, we are out in somewhat remote places. If the stream doesn't look like your TV at home, as we are broadcasting with Starlink and we are physically on the water. All right, let's go ahead and let's take a look at what Dr. Lowe and Dr. Goodmanlowe are doing.
Welcome, everybody. So here we are in blustery Central Florida, and it is blustery. It's cool. So I'm here with Dr. Goodmanlowe, my better half, my smarter half, and our resident expert in marine mammals. We have a great team with us today. We have Leo, who is a NOAA youth ambassador over here. Hello. And then we have over here Delaney, who is one of our underwater camera people. We have Bethy, who's one of our safety divers. We have Captain Dan, also behind Ocean Lab. We have our camera one, who's panning right now, Roxanne. There's her. So we're here to talk to you today about manatees. And trust me, I'm a shark guy. I don't know that much about marine mammals, and I'm always eager to learn. So what's interesting is today the marine mammals we're going to learn about are manatees. And manatees have a range that typically is restricted, right? They're not found up in the poles. So they're found where?
Well, actually, manatees are a marine mammal. Let's start with that. So they actually are a marine mammal, but they're very marine mammals in that they cannot withstand cold water. They're the only marine mammal that has to be in water that's warmer than 68 degrees Fahrenheit. So in Florida, in the winter, as you can see, we're all bundled up. Water actually gets really cold, but they will migrate to these freshwater springs because the freshwater springs have a constant temperature of about 72 degrees Fahrenheit. So I only wish it was 72 degrees Fahrenheit right now because our weather person tells us that it's about 54 degrees, feels like 44 degrees, which is why we're all bundled up. So that's why we're where we are, which is called Hunter Springs Park.
So I am really excited to see manatees, and we've been out the last couple of days looking for them. Visibility's been bad because the weather's not been great. But this area is a little bit clear.
Yes.
And I'm really excited about 72-degree water.
Yeah.
So what makes this program unique is normally when we're out in the water, we're wearing something like a mask and snorkel, and you can't talk very well underwater. So this, I'd be like talking, you wouldn't be able to hear me. But now, using these OTS full face masks, I can talk to you while I'm underwater, and I'm going to be asking questions when we see manatees or other life that are in this area about what these animals are doing. So with this technology, I get to ask things from underwater, and I can actually hear you ask me questions.
That's crazy.
Yeah. All right, so I need to get warm.
I can't wait to get in the water.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so while these things are set up, what we're going to do is show you some drone footage we took yesterday yesterday. So today it's too windy to fly the drone, but yesterday our drone got some really nice footage, aerial footage of the manatees in the water, resting in the water. So Kylie's going to show us some drone footage.
Kylie, I'm not seeing a full screen here. I'm just seeing.
All right. So Leo's going to take over for Chris while he's getting in the water. And
Yeah, and I
setting
have
up.
some questions for you.
That sounds
Yeah.
great.
So manatees are very large in size. Do they have a lot of blood? Does that keep them warm?
That's a great question. So manatees are huge, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, I don't understand how big when they only feed on plants. But when you think about it, most of the herbivores on Earth are actually larger than the carnivores. Think about elephants and things like. And manatees actually evolved from an ancestor that was similar to an elephant. So they are very, very large. But the weird thing is that even though they look really fat, their blubber layer is only an inch thick.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And because of that, that's actually what makes them sensitive to water, and they can something known as cold stress. So, but it's because their body is big, but their blubber layer is actually really thin compared to other marine mammals. And the other, even though manatees have little sparse hairs all over their body, they don't have a fur pelage or fur coat like other marine mammals do. And their blubber, like whales and dolphins, is not super thick. So that's what makes them very sensitive.
Okay. And to grow to that size, obviously you need to eat a lot. What's their diet? Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Good question. So their diet is actually mainly plant materials. They feed on seagrasses. They're very efficient at digesting nutrients that are in seagrasses. They eat coastal plants sometimes, but because they are their metabolism is high because they're actually a mammal, and because they're only plant material, they have to eat a lot.
Yeah.
Any idea how much they have to eat per day, Leo?
No.
Any guesses?
Maybe 3 pounds.
Wow, 3 pounds. How much do you eat per day for your body weight? Think 10%, 1%,
5%.
5%. Okay, so manatees have between 15 and 20% weight per day, and because they get to be about 1,000 pounds, that means they're eating up to 200 pounds of plant
Yeah, that's a
material
lot.
a day. That's a lot of salad,
Yeah.
right? That is a lot of salad. It's not so, yes, they have to eat a lot to maintain that body weight. But again, it's plant material. They're actually the only herbivorous marine mammal that we have.
So to eat all these plants, do they have teeth?
That's a pretty good question. Yeah, they have teeth. Their teeth are some of the coolest in the marine mammal world, in my opinion, because they're only molars. So we have incisors, we have canines, we have molars, but their entire mouth is just molars. And because they're eating plant material, which is very rough, their molars, their teeth wear down as they're eating.
Yeah.
So what happens is they have a kind of conveyor belt for their teeth, where their teeth will start in the back like this, and they'll move slowly forward, and when they get to the front, they're just little nubs. They actually have a really cool name for that. It's called molar marching.
Yeah.
And then
Because they're sort of. Yeah.
Sharks have a similar thing, but not really. So shark teeth, as you know, sharks have rows and rows of
Yep.
teeth that come up and come out like that and are constantly falling out and being replaced. These are the only other marine mammal, or the only other animal that I know of where their teeth actually are falling out on their own. Because if you think about it, we have 2 sets of teeth as humans, but once our adult teeth are in, unless you break it or you have to have a root
Yeah, you
canal or
can't throw
something, they have
back.
to pull it
Yeah.
out, right? No other animal like cats and dogs, they all have full teeth, but they have those 2 sets of teeth, and that's it. They're not using them and replacing them throughout their entire lifetime. So It's pretty interesting.
Oh yeah, that's pretty interesting. So how many senses do they have? Can they hear, see like we do?
Yeah, so great question. So as far as their senses go, they have 5 senses like us. So what are our 5 senses? I'm gonna pick up my little Mary the manatee prop here.
Yeah, so we
what are
can
our 5
touch,
senses here?
we can see,
Touch, yeah,
we can hear, we can feel,
and
eat. Yeah,
which is taste.
yeah, taste.
Okay, so let's start with the senses. So they do not have very good eyesight. So this little prop right here, Mary the manatee, her eyes are pretty big on this stuffed animal, but their eyes are actually really small and they're extremely nearsighted. So for example, for a human, if we could see something at 60 feet away pretty clearly, the manatees would have to be 20 feet away to see
wow,
it. It's
yeah.
very nearsighted, so they kind of need spectacle. So that's eyesight. Their sense of taste isn't very, um, isn't very great. They can't taste the difference between a lot of different things like we can. And that's mainly because they're feeding on plant materials. They don't really taste.
Yeah.
So, for example, sea otters have favorite food items they can taste really well. Not they don't taste really well, but they have their sense of taste is really good. And so they actually have favorite food items. Different sea otters will say, I only like that, only like that. But with manatees, because they're really feeding mainly on plant material, their sense of taste isn't that great.
Okay.
Okay, so that's vision and taste. Their sense of touch, they have these things called vibrissae, which are right on the front here. And their sense of touch is actually the best sense that they have. They're so sensitive in their vibrissae. They have nerve endings all throughout the vibrissae that they can actually go up to another manatee, what I call snurfling, and touch each other with their vibrissae, and they can say, "Hey, that's Joe," or "Hey, that's Sally." So their sense of touch is actually the best. So we have taste, we have vision, we have touch, hearing. Okay, their hearing is interesting. So as you can see from Mary, you don't see any external ear flaps over here. It's all smooth. Their ear is, if you can see a manatee up close, their ear is just a tiny little dot, little hole, tiny, tiny hole. That's on their, back button here by this little wrinkle. And they can hear, but they mainly hear in the upper frequencies. So they don't really hear very well in the lower frequencies. So that's a little bit of an issue for conservation because boats typically put out kind of lower frequency sounds and they don't really hear boats until they get really close to them.
Yeah.
Okay, so what did I miss? So we have vision, touch,
Sorry.
that's vision, hearing, taste. I think we covered all of them. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So manatees, they make squeaking noises. Is that for communication?
Yeah. So squeaky noises. Think about it. That's really high frequency, right?
Yeah.
So that's an indication that they can only hear in the high frequency level. Yes. So they communicate with squeaks and kind of whistles and things like that. And mainly they are communicating with the moms are communicating with dads. So, for example, they're not really communicating with, say, males for mating or like with each other. Like, hey, there's a great seagrass bed over here.
Yeah.
It's mainly like to keep track of their calves. There's fear. They can, make sounds for fear, surprise, things like that. So their communication is good, but it's more limited than say humpback whales that have the elaborate songs for communication and things like that. So, but they do make sounds that again they're mainly in the high frequency.
Okay. And how do they reproduce?
Okay, another great question. So let's talk about that for a second. So to start with, manatees have a really interesting reproductive system where it's called mating herds. So in other words, what happens is you'll get one female, and a bunch of males will find her, and they will kind of come around her, and they'll try to mate with the one female. So many males are trying to mate with one female. They'll push each other away. They try to get in the way of each other. And there's some theory as to how the males actually find the female. males. They think that could be smell. Oh, forgot to talk about something.
Oh,
Smell.
yeah.
Let's go back for a second. So manatees do have nostrils, which they're going to be right here. And the nostrils they can't breathe underwater. Just like any mammal, their nostrils have to be closed when they're underwater, but they can smell when they're, in the air. And they think that maybe the manatees lose some of their scent on rocks and things like that. And the males smell that because they don't really know how they find each other. So they form these mating herds, and the males will kind of all crowd around the female, and then one of them will mate with her. One of many will mate with her, but she only has one calf per year. Okay, so there's Manatee right there. Can you see it? I'm gonna ask our camera person to go check out the Manatee right there, right by the boat. There it is. That was fantastic. All right. Very nice. Okay, so let's talk about their bodies for a second before, and then we'll get back to mating because we just saw it. So we saw a big, rounded, paddle-like tail. Okay, very important because they're slow swimmers, but they need that to maneuver around, to get around, and they need it to get down to the bottom for eating. The other thing is you might have noticed the coloration in their bodies. Their skin rough on it. So there's a reason for that. So a lot of marine mammals have extra or like muskies get rid of their fur twice a year. And manatees don't do that. They're kind of sloughing off skin just like us all the time. And so the skin on the manatee often looks rough like that.
Yeah.
Also, because they are spending a lot of time in fresh water and salt water and warmer winters, and they're close to the surface to breathe, they get a lot of algae that goes on their back. So that skin sloughing off gets rid of the algae quite a bit. But that's why they look rough. Okay, so back to the mating bird. So get pregnant, and she is pregnant for about 13 months, so longer than a year. And the mating season is typically summer. Okay, so then 13 months later, like 2 to 3 years later, so then it's starting baby. It's only one chicken. It's one. She's not pregnant one. She can only take care of one with her milk, one a year. So, and when the calves are born, they can weigh about 60 or 70 pounds. They're healthy. And then they grow to adult size in a few years. So, because the gestation period of pregnancy is so long, manatee moms only have a baby about every 5 years. Now, if the baby dies, it dies right away. They get pregnant next year. So every 2 years,
They need a rest.
because they need
Yeah.
rest. The baby is with them. She's taking care of the baby for 2 to 3 years. So it's been a little while later, a year or two later, she'll be able to get pregnant again. And next year she'll be able to get pregnant. Then she'll be able to have the calf about 13 months later. So
Yeah. We just saw a manatee here. How many manatees are there currently? And what's their population size?
that's a good question. So Kylie mentioned that this is the highest concentration of manatees in Florida, which is true. Overall, there's probably somewhere around 9,500 and 9,700 manatees, but they're in pockets. So, especially in the winter time, they have to go to these water springs to stay warm. So there are certain areas all along Florida's coast and inland rivers and bays where we have these freshwater warm springs. And so that's why they're so concentrated here. That's why we can see so many in White Witch's family.
Yeah.
In the summer, they're going to be dispersed a lot more. They're going to be in bays, estuaries, but also along the coast. Never very deep, where their food is shallow.
Yes.
So they don't really dive much more than, say, 60 feet, maybe 20 feet. And they can also breath for about 20 minutes max, but typically it's every 3 to 5 minutes, which is cool for us. here to the right, where we have the freshwater, warm water spring, you'll be able to see the manatee come up every like 5 minutes to take a breath. So that's how I see where they are. And remember, a lot of so they're resting, they're feeding. Many, most of the day they're feeding or resting or conserving their energy because it's,
Yeah. And what are some threats that face the manatees?
that's a good question. They're the main threat to manatees. So let's talk about predators. So in the ocean, what do you think the top predators are? Not for manatees, but for any.
I mean, there's sharks, orcas, whales, copperfish, chafe,
Okay.
tunas.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anything kind of top of the food chain.
Yeah.
All right. So manatees, big, they kind of operate. Some people think they're very smart, but they are smart. So you would think that they would be, prey for lots of things like sharks,
Yeah.
alligators, crocodiles. But actually, they don't really have that many predators for a few reasons. One reason is they're not really in the safe in these freshwater areas. They call them very close to the other thing is that you get alligators in freshwater. Why aren't they getting eaten by alligators? Alligators do not like things to eat things that are really big. So they like to eat things that they can swallow. And there's no way they can swallow.
Yeah.
Another thing too is that it's pretty tough. And it's just too much. It would require too much energy for the alligator to look out in order to get eaten back. So in fact, the main threat to manatees are humans. So, but then there's a couple different things that are happening. For one thing, boats. So manatees are very slow. They don't react quickly. It doesn't mean they're dumb. They just don't react quickly. And so by the time, by the time they get near the boats, they don't have a lot of time to get down underneath the water. It takes them a while to get under the water. So, in fact, most of the manatees that I've seen in the water have some kind of propeller damage where they've gotten hit by a propeller. Now, most of the time, because of their fat layer, they can survive that.
They'll
But
just have marks on their
they'll
skin.
have marks
Yeah.
on their skin, level scars, they'll have scars. But it can kill them also. So boat strikes is really the number one threat. Another threat that they have is something called red tide. So you've heard of red tide.
Yes, yeah.
You know what that is?
Where there's a algae bloom and it makes the water turn almost red.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's in the algae? Those red tides.
They just,
Dangerous.
yes, it is dangerous. And the algae blooms, they take over big part of the ocean and they just take away from the biodiversity.
There you go. Okay. So a lot of red tide have toxins in them, toxin, and the manatees are swimming, with their mouths open. So they're not eating the red algae or the red tide algae.
Taking it in.
They're
Yeah.
taking it in, and that actually is toxic. So in 2021 to 22, they had what they call an unusual mortality event, and that was from starvation from a huge red tide bloom. So they get really sick from that. They can't eat. The red tide also affects their diet. They start to starve, and so they have an unusual mortality event. And the conservation organizations will go and try to get them and bring them into captivity to give them fluids and rehab them and feed them, and then back in the wild. But so number one threat is humans. Red tide, although that is not
As common.
it does
Yeah.
it happens in waves, but the problem with that is that it's also human induced.
Yeah.
Red tides are getting more frequent because of human activities like climate change, because the warmer it gets, the more red tides we have.
Yeah.
Also, freshwater runoff causes red tides in some areas. And some golf courses have freshwater runoff. Freshwater runoff also reduces their biodiversity. Climate change causes pollution. The warmer remember that climate change is not just global warming, where the temperature goes straight up. You can see it goes up and down, up and down, up and down. So in an area like Florida, where they have cold snaps, what that means is that the cold snaps get more extreme. So now you have more extreme, more frequent cold snaps. You also get more hurricanes from climate change. And during hurricanes, depending on what season it is, manatees might not be in those protected areas. So now they have to travel to these protected areas. That means they have to expend the energy to get to these areas. It might not be formed. So all of those things are issues that are really caused by humans.
Okay.
So number one threat for manatees are not natural predators, but actually humans.
Yeah. So we kind of talked about the conservation, but are there other efforts that we do to protect these manatees?
Definitely, yeah. So we have a bunch of different acts. We have the Endangered Species Act, which was enacted in 1972. We have the Marine Mammal Protection Act, which was enacted in 1973. We have some divers coming up, which is not an act. We have there's a bunch of different laws here in Florida. So that will protect the manatees. They've designated critical habitat for manatees. Roxanne and it just showed this little area right here. So you can see these buoys right here, and it says the area is closed. So snorkelers are allowed to go in there, but in order to do that, you have to watch a video to tell you how to act around manatees. You're not supposed to touch them, you don't speak to them, you don't dive down to them, and those kayaks are allowed in these areas. And these are refuges that are protected and are right around springs. So there's all these areas that critical habitat areas that have been protected from humans, so that we can't actually get in. A lot of acts.
Hey Gwen, I hate to interrupt you, but
sorry.
Delaney's on a manatee right now.
Oh,
If you want to
nice.
look at the monitor, if you're able to see it.
All right.
Could you talk us through kind of what we're looking at?
Into the sun, so I can't really see. I can't see it. I'm sorry. Someone, but can you see it, Kylie? Can you point out something?
Right. Gwen's having a little bit of hard time seeing the monitor, but I can see it. So you guys are looking at the face of the manatee. You've got Delaney in the water. It looks like the manatee's actually kind of curious and coming up to Delaney, which is pretty cool. Just like Gwen was talking about, they've got that algae all over their back, and then you can see the little bristles on the face. As Gwen was saying, we are in a refuge, so we of course are not chasing the manatees. We're letting them come to us. So it looks like that manatee kind of headed away from Delaney, and she's just gonna hang out there, see if it's gonna come back to her.
So Kylie mentioned curious, and that's a really good thing to talk about. Manatees are mammals, right? They have a brain, and they're smart, and they are actually really curious about people. So they will come up to people, and although you're not supposed to touch them, some people, do touch them, but they like to hug people. They like to, have their belly scratched. You're not supposed to do that though, but they are curious and they want to know what's going on. So they do come up to the boat. They do come up to kayaks, and they do come up to people.
Okay. Now I'm gonna be switching to Dr. Lowe.
Okay. Hold up here.
Oh, yeah? How was it down there?
Beautiful.
Don't touch
Nice
me
and warm.
with your wet
Oh,
face.
yes, thank you. So, we did see a couple manatees blowing by. It's
Okay.
a lot of fish, and there's a lot of algae.
Okay.
So I could see why the manatees are in there. It's steep
Is
down
it?
in the water.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
They got out in the air
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
So they flew by. So
Interesting.
why would they move so quickly?
Which way were they moving?
They were going that way.
They were going that way.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I'm not sure why they would go that way, because as far as I know, that warm water spring is over there.
Okay.
So, but there
Okay.
might be more springs in this area. So they might have been moving to a different spring.
Okay. So that movement, especially now when the temperature's dropping,
Right.
they're going to be looking for a warmer
Yeah,
place
yeah,
to hang out
yeah.
for the next couple of days.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Did you see any babies?
I didn't see any babies.
Okay.
Yeah. Ones that went by were kind of skinny.
Were
Kind
they?
of skinny, yeah.
Okay, interesting.
So tell us anything about manatees in their health if they look skinny?
Yeah, definitely. But they shouldn't be that skinny now. Usually they get skinny, in a different time of year, like when right before they're mating, and also if there's a red tide in the water or something like that.
So if they're sick.
Yeah, if they're sick.
Okay,
But,
all right.
but they might look skinny to you just because you're not used to seeing them.
Well, the ones I saw yesterday.
Okay,
Yeah,
there you go.
This one
Yeah.
looked skinny in
Okay.
comparison,
All right, maybe.
but it wasn't toddling. It was going. I do
Wait,
hear.
let me just say one thing.
Yeah.
So they do get this cold stress syndrome, and when they get the cold stress syndrome, when it's too cold, it affects their immune system, and it does cause starvation. So maybe that one was really cold stress.
Oh, okay.
I don't
That
know.
makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But I think the thing that I found interesting was there's so much food that they would like eat. There's algae all over the seafloor. So
They
I'm
don't
sure
eat algae.
don't
No,
eat
not really.
seagrass.
They eat seagrass.
Seagrass.
So that's not really their main prey.
So they're just here to keep warm.
Yeah, just here.
I'm
Yeah.
getting back to what it's
Yeah.
cold out.
One thing I forgot to say about their reproduction, another cool thing about manatees is that they do have mammary glands because they're mammals. But instead of having the mammary glands on their their tummies like cats and dogs and whatever, they actually have one little mammary gland here in their armpit. Moms, only the moms.
Okay.
So if you ever get to see a manatee baby, I have Barbara over there. If you ever get to see a manatee baby and it looks like it's just like attached to the armpit of the mom, it's because the baby is nursing.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So that's what they're doing. They're actually nursing right there in the armpit.
So, is this the time of year where we see a lot of moms and calves?
Yes, because they're born in the summer and they're getting bigger and bigger. So yeah, they're born in the summer. The fall is when we should be seeing babies. A lot of babies, a lot of calves.
Yeah.
Their moms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're trying to stay warm.
Yeah.
Because it's cold.
And remember that there's not a lot of male taking care of the babies. So
Really?
it's not like other kind of animals. Well, I don't know any other animals. Maybe birds do that, but
Sharks not.
not
No.
sharks. Yeah. So maybe he was a little bit. But yeah, but the moms take care of the calves for the 2 to 3 years. So dads, they don't even know they're absent dads. They're baby daddies.
Got it.
So they're just they mate and then they're off.
They're
They
gone.
don't even know if they've had any babies.
So do they move to different places? The males and females separate during certain times of the year? They segregate?
They don't segregate.
They don't
Yeah.
segregate. Okay. So
But-
they hang out together.
Yeah, I mean, but they're not really. I mean, they all need to be near these freshwaters,
Right.
So they're not really. It's not like hammerheads where they're separate. Separate pods.
Sure. Males go here,
Right.
females go
Right.
there.
And not like elephant seals, they do that. They're just kind of all together. And so, if you look at the ventral surface of a manatee, you can actually tell the difference between male and female.
How do you tell?
So there's different orifices, and so like in the male, the umbilical scar will be here,
Okay.
and the urogenital area where the penis comes out will be here.
Okay.
And in females, her urogenital area is going to be here,
Closer to the
penis
tail.
closer to the tail. So
Okay.
so yeah, hers will be here. So the closer they are together, and you can see them because they look like kind of like spots, but
Okay.
the closer they are together, it would be a male, and then if they're like that, it would be a female. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
that's how you can tell if you like saw that one come by.
They went by so
Yeah.
fast.
They went by
There's
so
no
fast,
way.
yeah. But sometimes they'll, when they're a little warmer, they'll be like hanging out,
Yeah.
with their bellies up.
Right. Yeah. We didn't see any hanging out belly up
No,
today.
no. Well, it's pretty
Blow by. It's very windy.
Yeah. Very windy.
So, what is the status of these things?
Well, we've talked about that.
Oh,
Leo and I talked
I was
about
on
that.
I couldn't hear.
Yeah. So the population, they've had an unusual mortality event in 2021, 22, but they canceled that in March of 2022, and they seem to be holding steady, relatively steady. But there's always events that happen where we always have Pokemon strikes, and if there's another red tide, that's going to bring the population down again.
Okay. But in Florida, it seems like there's a lot of boats. There's a lot of people.
Yeah.
That must make it challenging for manatees to
It is,
find
yes.
places to feed, to get into where it's warm. But yeah, people want to see them.
Right,
Which is
right.
good,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, it is one of the only places in the world that legally you can swim with manatees.
Wow.
So, especially in the United States. I mean, they're only found in Florida, but they do still let us swim with them, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, but-
Because, you know, the Marine Mammal Protection Act, marine mammals, you have to stay, what is it, feet away?
Yeah.
You have to stay 200 feet away. So the fact that we're still allowed to swim with them here is, you know,
It's pretty amazing.
it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's good. People get a chance to see these animals. Maybe they want to do
Exactly. Yes.
Well, I'm waiting for the warmer part of climate change right now because this is not what we expect, but you know, weather does get more unpredictable as the planet continues
It does,
to warm.
yeah.
So
Got some real windy, cold weather today.
do.
Yeah.
So in terms of their ability, so they've been around. How long? How long have manatees been around? Um,
That's a good question. They've been around a long time. Yeah,
right, and
millions of
they're
years.
I probably missed this part. They descendants from
Elephants.
elephants, right? Right.
Well, not elephants. They had a common ancestor.
Okay. All right.
So-
Yes.
Yeah,
But they went back to the water.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, in other places, and not doing very well.
There's different species of manatees. So it's in some places they are. There's like, you know, we have about 9,500. I think the Amazonian manatee population, I can't remember exactly, but I think it's like around 30,000.
30,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're different species are have different issues.
Very, very interesting animals.
Yeah.
You know, they just seem so efficient. They're just laying there a lot of times, just hovering. And I know they're almost intensely bored. Just breath of air,
Yeah.
watching them come to the surface,
Yeah.
and then they exhale, and then they sink back down. And you can swim right by them, and they just like sleep.
They are sleeping. A lot of us are right now.
So all of that is to conserve energy.
Yes.
Yep, I'm ready to conserve some energy right now. All my energy is going into shivering, which is how this man is trying to stay warm.
Me too. I wish I had some of that manatee.
Do we have any questions?
Yeah, guys, so we have a bunch of questions. One of my questions is why it's blowing so hard, why all my stuff is blowing away. But we do have a bunch of questions from across the country. So our first question is from a patient in Miami, which is pretty close to where we are right now. I really hope it's warmer there. They want to know, why do manatees move so slowly, and are they ever in a hurry?
That's
Oh,
a good
that's a
question.
great question.
Okay, so if you think about it, because manatees are herbivores, they don't have to move quickly. There's nothing that they have to catch, right? They're not, going for fish or anything like that. So they really don't have to move quickly. But they, as Chris said, that one was booking down past them.
When they want
So
to go.
they can move quickly. They're very efficient swimmers, so they can move quickly, but they don't have to. So they're not really evolved as fast as dolphins or sharks or anything like that.
So they remind me a lot of cows.
Yes.
They do. I mean, just their faces, the way they move, they seem like cows. Like, I'm going to praise here, but when the farmer rings the dinner bell, puts the grain out, they come running.
Yeah.
So I imagine they can really go. When they want
They
to
can
go.
if they want to. I mean,
Yeah.
look at their big rounded tail, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
that's a great
It's a good propeller.
propeller.
That's a great question. Are there any more?
Of course, there. That actually is a wonderful segue, because somebody in Salt Lake City wanted to know why they're sometimes called sea cows. I think we kind of answered that question. But another question from DC is what do manatees eat all day, and how much food do they need to eat?
All right. As I said before, manatees eat seagrass and sometimes coastal plants. And they need to eat about 15 to 20% of their body weight per day. So that means they're going to be eating up to 200 pounds per day, since they weigh about 1,000 pounds.
That's
It's a lot of plants, right? It's a lot of salad.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff. And that was right up. Probably talked about it.
Talk about it.
Yeah, crazy.
Talked about it. Yeah.
Just a lot of silica and seagrass.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
It
really,
wears their teeth right
Yeah.
down.
wow, that's a lot of food.
No cavities for them.
No cavities for them. Those are great questions.
All right. Well, I think that I ate about 200 pounds of biscuits and gravy this morning, so I'm basically a sea cow. Again, as you guys can see at home, I'm becoming more and more of an egg as we continue to blow away. Okay, someone in Orlando wants to know, where do the manatees sleep if they live in the water?
They sleep in the most marine mammals, other than seals and sea lions, are in the water 100% of the time. And so manatees, what they do is they go into a resting state. They can hold their breath for up to 20 minutes, and then they just come to the surface and probably still in some kind of state of sleep, because it's innate for them to come to the surface. Then they just come to the surface slowly, take a breath, and then just go back down to the bottom. So remember, they're not found very deep. So water, they're resting in very shallow water, so they don't really have much to and take a breath and then go back down to the bottom.
So now, we obviously live in here, so we don't have but how do they do?
It's just an innate ability, just like all marine mammals.
So-
They just live on the surface.
So, but when they're resting, does their brain turn off? Or are they one of the ones that can turn off half their brain?
They don't really know yet. Yeah, we don't know about manatees. Yeah,
All right. Because dolphins and whales.
yeah, the dolphins.
And all that sure.
If you know the sharks. And marine mammals.
Yeah.
I don't know if I remember that yet.
Either that, or they're always really tired. That's why that.
That's why they're
get
too
out,
slow.
Get out of my way. I'm going to take.
Exactly.
All right. What else you got?
All right. We have another question from Orlando. Orlando wants to know, how big can a manatee get compared to a person? And then somebody in, New York wants to know, are they friendly to people and other animals? So if the manatee was next to a person, how big would it be, and would it be friendly?
Okay, so manatees weigh about 1,000 pounds.
Yeah.
I am not quite that large, so I would say it's, if I'm 5 feet, it's, so maybe twice as long as me, maybe 2 times as long, and quite a bit bigger. So they're much larger compared to humans. But the babies are smaller, so remember they're born at about 70, 80 pounds. And then, yes, they are friendly. Look for them and not right up to the tall and go to different surfaces and investigate, but they're very, very sensitive, like you're saying, to see what those things are.
And I hear they like to be scratched.
They do.
So-
We're not supposed to touch them.
No touching.
Yeah.
I'm a big no touching policy person when it comes to animals.
Right.
But that's because their skin flicks
Yes,
off.
their skin flicks off, so they want to get that skin. Exfoliate.
Yes.
They need an exfoliating
Yeah, exactly.
brush. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So
Well, we seem to have lost the feed that has Dr. Goodmanlowe and Dr. Gwen Goodmanlowe. Oh, and they're back.
we're back. So those are and size matters, right? Because the bigger you are, the greater the feet you can hold in
Yes,
your body,
definitely.
especially in cold water. So that big body does a lot.
Yes.
Okay. Got one last question. Somebody in Dallas wants to know, what can kids specifically do to help protect manatees and to keep them safe?
So it all starts with us, right? So remember, we are the #1 threat for manatees. So you can educate people. That's always my #1 thing is to tell people about the manatees, tell people what, educate other people against harming manatees. And remember, besides polluting is climate change and pollution and runoff. So, talk about or, figure out ways to reduce pollution. Plastic pollution is a big problem these days. Microplastics,
Protecting seagrass beds.
and
I think
protecting
that's
seagrass
really
beds. Maybe frequenting, if you're a golfer, frequenting golf courses that don't use fertilizer, because
Yep.
the fertilizers go into the water and create issues for the red tides and create issues for the seagrass, causes starvation. So pollution and education are the two things that you should really concentrate on if you want to try to help manatees.
Yeah, and we should all want to help manatees. They're important. They keep our ecosystems, especially our marine ecosystems, healthy.
Yes.
And they're free.
Yeah, they are.
And I'm a shark guy. I'm not even a fan of marine mammals, and yet I look at a manatee.
Yeah.
And the babies are cute.
I was going to say, and you think they're cute,
The
don't you?
babies are cute. They are cute. They have a cute little face.
All right, everyone, go ahead and say goodbye to Dr. Lowe and Dr. Goodmanlowe. That is all the time that we have for today. We hope you guys enjoyed this. I enjoyed it so much, and I know that the researchers did, even though we are all freezing to our core. We're really stoked that we got to see you guys, or we got you guys to see a manatee underwater, actually a couple manatees underwater. That was awesome. Thank you, as always, for tuning in, and stay up to date with on our website, on our email list, with the shows that we'll have in the future. And that's all for now.